Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. My name is Jeremias Gibilbank. Today I will be talking about GitHub Copilot in this space that we call OTTs, Online Tech Talks. These are talks that we give to our team members here at Withe Prompt, where we share knowledge or something interesting that we have been using recently. So let's start right away. So today I will be talking about GitHub Copilot. It's a great tool that GitHub has put together during recent years. It's still on preview in some aspects, but it's really powerful with today's features. And this is the homepage for GitHub Copilot. You will see a bunch of features described here, and you can see the actual pricing of the tool. The tool price is $10 per month for individuals, and if you are on a business, it costs $20 for each user. First of all, I wanted to talk about the privacy on GitHub Copilot. So in my case, and just in case, I went to GitHub Copilot settings on my account, and there is a checkbox that says allow GitHub to use my code snippets for product improvements. Personally, I uncheck this box also because I'm using this feature on our customers, so just to remain private. In any case, GitHub will collect some information about how we use the tool and who we are, but everything that is not on the code shouldn't be used for training. And in theory, if you uncheck this box, your code shouldn't be used for training. So let's jump right away to the tool. Implementation with GitHub Copilot. So I asked GitHub Copilot to put together a markdown file where it describes the tool. It's designed to something we always have to remember is that AI is undeterministic. So it could be a case that sometimes you get one answer, and there are other times where you will get different answers for the same prompt. So take that into account. It's not deterministic. Different answers could be given for the same input. So let's go through the key features. Autocompletion. This is one of the one that I mostly use on my day-to-day work. It allows you to autocomplete with relevant code when you're writing something. Something interesting is that, as it says in the point number 4, is context awareness. So it always knows which file we are modifying, which function, and it gets information about our variables and everything from the context. A smart code suggestion, it could give you a whole function for you if you ask for something, or it would detect patterns on your code. On the language support, you will see that it supports most languages: Python, JavaScript, Java, C++, and more. In this case, I generated this presentation, and it's generated in Markdown, and it just worked flawlessly. It learns from the community. All the code that GitHub Copilot gets is code that is living in GitHub in some projects where it's allowed to get code from. So it's code from the community. And as we will see here, we will be trying the extension for VS Code. In any case, it's not only for VS Code, it also has integration with JetBrains, Standard Visual Studio, NetBeam, and some others. So let's jump to the agenda. JetBrains. These are the 4, including Visual Studio Code, the 4 IDEs that are supported right now. Different extensions could have different features right now. I think that the most advanced is the Visual Studio Code that we are seeing here. So about the extension, you just come here, find the GitHub Copilot extension. It will install automatically the GitHub Copilot chat. I'm not sure why there are 2, but I think that in the future they will merge it into one. So that's about the extension. You just install it. It will ask you to log in with your GitHub account. If you have the license, you will get it up and running. So let me show you some code here. Let's start with code completion. So this is a small application that we created. This application allows us to cut and upload YouTube videos to YouTube. So it's just a simple Fast API, no, sorry, Flask API. It has a bunch of methods for this to work. So let's try some autocompletion here. So for example, let's start writing a new method. So let's say, okay, it's already autocompleted with something. You will see that every time you press enter, there is a small icon here on your IDE. This is the Copilot icon. Every time you press enter, this will try to get suggestions for you. So for example, here is suggesting to me to make a method that is exactly the same to this one because it doesn't have any context. But let's try to trigger something with a comment. So for example, let's say I want to create a route to detect faces on my videos. So I can put here a method faces here. Sometimes there you go. So it will start giving me autocompletion on the comment that I already put there. So let's try to keep this going. So as I'm writing, it will start giving me different suggestions on how to do this job. In this case, it will only upload the video to S3. So we could decide on getting this, or we could press Ctrl plus Enter, and I will get a bunch of suggestions. So when you click Ctrl Enter, after you accept the autocompletion, let me make this bigger, you will get a bunch of suggestions on how GitHub Copilot thinks you can do this. So as you see here, there are a bunch of options. I think that there is no option that really do the face detection for me. It's just auto-completing. Let's see. It's just calling the code that I have on a service, but it's not doing anything. So let's try. Okay. So as you have seen, I will always be suggested with some code. You can see how it detects what I want to do and then suggests on the context some code. So that is the #1 feature that I'm always using. And for me, I'm not a Python expert, so it has been really helpful for me because every time I have at least a suggestion on what I want to do. So that is the first thing I wanted to show you. Then I want to show you a trigger that you have for Copilot that is Ctrl plus I. So every time I want to trigger the actual Copilot, I can click Ctrl I, and this will create a small box here, and I can run a bunch of commands or ask Copilot to do something for me. So let's see, for example, code fixing. Let's try to break this code. Let's say, I don't know, I'm missing a comma here, for example. You will see my code is broken. So I can select my code, press Ctrl plus I, and I can ask, I have a bunch of commands that are prepared to ask Copilot specific things. So let's try with the fix, for example. You just ask, fix this code, and then you see it detected the comma that was missing. Let's say I accept this change, and this not only fixes the comma, but also adds a comment so I know what has been fixed. I'm not sure why. Okay, it removed an unused variable, and it's telling me that it has done that for me. And for some reason, it updated the response message. Okay. It's supposed that this response message wasn't okay. So that's it. So every time I'm on my code, I have something broken, I can just select it, press Ctrl A, and I can get my code fixed. Same works for documentation. So for example, let's say this is my code, and I want to document this method. Let's say this doesn't exist. I want to document my method. I just press Ctrl plus I, and I can write /doc, enter. There you go. So it will document automatically my endpoint. It will say this is an endpoint for detecting faces in a video. And it detected that a JSON response is returned, indicating the success of the method. Let's see if we can document this other method that we have here. This is a method that just gets a video and it uploads it to YouTube. So let's try to do something. Ctrl plus I, and there you go. You get almost free documentation. And if for some reason you don't like the answer that you got, you could always regenerate and get another response. And as I mentioned, responses will be different because this is undeterministic. Always know that. So that's on. We went through code fixing, documentation, and let's see the explain code. So apart from getting documentation, fixing my code, I could also ask GitHub Copilot to explain my code to me. For example, if it's something that I'm not getting how it's working, on why it works like that, I just ask for explain. And in this case, you will see it open the chat. This chat has the same features I'm triggering with Ctrl+I, but explains works here. So it will detect all the context of my application, and it will try to explain what our method is doing. So it's saying that it's part of a Flask web application that handles video uploads to YouTube because it's written in Python. It uses Flask framework for web development, and a lot of description on how variables are used, how the routes are declared in my application. So pretty good information there. Now let's jump to the last one. That is, I can select my code, Ctrl+I, and I can ask GitHub Copilot to create a test for my code. So let's just trigger that one. So in this case, it didn't only create a test for my method, but for my file, because it detected I am on a roots file. It detected that I don't have any tests created, so it created a new file. And let's say we accept this will create the new file where my test lives, and it will have a setup and an actual test for the function that I was just running. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's a good start point for testing applications. So let's try to run it again to see if we have a different result. It looks pretty similar, but also what I can do, instead of using the actual commands that GitHub Copilot gives us, we can actually ask Copilot to do it. So do a test for this function, and I could also add some more complexity to my test. So for example, let's say I want to test it with a concurrency of 3 executions. So it gives us a test with the modifier that we asked for. So it's doing a concurrency of 3 threads hitting the same endpoint at the same time. So pretty powerful. And if we do the test in a specific way, we can ask it to be in the specific way that we use our tests. So we went through code completion, triggering Ctrl+I, code fixing, documentation generation, explaining code, test generation, and let's go with the last one, that is getting code from a prompt. So let's close this. So apart from Ctrl+I, there is one more shortcut that is important. When you click F1, you can search for this command. F1 is to trigger commands in VS Code. So this command that is called Open Quick Chat is just opening the same chat you have on the left, but in any portion of your code. And we could ask here, for example, to boilerplate a whole application. Right now, I am working on a Python project, but for example, I could ask here to create a whole another application with another language. So I can say create an Express.js API with a simple method of, I don't know, that, let's try this, that summarizes text with OpenAI API. Let's try this to see if it works. Okay, it's giving us the step-by-step, and then it will give us, so this gives us the code. It's using Axios to hit the API that corresponds to summarizing a text. It just gives you the places where you have to put your API key. It has some documentation on how this works. And after you hit this command, you have 2 options. One is just using the code from here. You have several shortcuts. You can copy the code. You can insert where your cursor is, or you can insert to a new file. Also, if the thing that is suggesting to you is a command, you can just click run it on terminal, and it will be just running in your terminal. Also, an important thing, there is a small button here that if you click it, you will get the same answer in the chat. And these are like 2 separate chats. Like this is one chat, and the one that you trigger with F1 is another. So the things that are here, if you don't click here, you won't be able to see them later here. For me, it seems pretty neat. Every time you want to do something, and instead of Googling it, how you should do that, you just ask Copilot, you get a good example on that, and you will just get it. So let's close this. So as I say, it's a powerful coding assistant. It boosts our productivity. Really useful to do those things that are boring, like documenting, creating tests, and it's also good to have a first implementation of something we are trying to do, or something to guide us during our coding sessions. So that's all. I hope you like this presentation. So I will be open to questions, or if you want me to try something. All right. No questions there?
Okay. No, I don't think question, but I remember I've used chat. Yeah, it was ChatGPT, and I got a really interesting outcome. It would use, for example, date functions in JavaScript that I didn't know existed. It can be very useful for finding things that you wouldn't look for yourself. You wouldn't spend too much time digging through documentation about date functions in JavaScript, but you just ask using human language what you want, and it kind of works really well sometimes to just give you options.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, and it's great. Something you were mentioning, as this is trained with LLM, I could, for example, ask something in Spanish, and it will just get it. So let's say, so it's not only in English, but also in Spanish or any other language that you want to input. The output will always be in English. In fact, the chat will answer in English, but you can ask everything in your own language. So that's also great. And yes, it's really awesome to discover things that you never tried on these languages, because it has all the code base from GitHub. Really smart.
I think for productivity, every area in tech can benefit from these tools.
Yeah, for sure. And I will repeat again what I said before, it's non-deterministic, so don't expect always the same result with the same input. You can find different things, and never trust the code that this generates, because it can have security issues, bugs, and a lot of flawless. So be careful with how much code you use from this output. And for other reasons like document and testing, it could be safer. But in any case, although you should use it, or I recommend you to use it, take into account that you should revise the code, you should check the code, and you should check that it's doing the thing that you want to do also. All right, thank you everyone.